Well, good morning. How are you all today? Welcome to Integrative Preparedness. I'm Steve Smith. Want to talk today about false teachers, the dangers of false teachers. And boy, there's a bunch of them out there. Going to tell a couple of stories today from my own life that are going to illustrate this. Those of you on Patreon have heard these before. Maybe not everybody on Patreon because we have a lot of new people over there. I keep getting people asking me, "Hey, would you tell that story again?" So today I'm going to tell these stories also for the YouTube audience because they are um, illustrative of what to be careful of out there. And sadly, there's a lot of people to be careful of in the preparedness world. Um, Forgive me if I clear my throat. I'm still trying to get over this, but I also just got done with breakfast. Barbecue meatloaf, a man's breakfast, right? So that might be kind of irritating my throat until I have enough of this to wash it down. Oh, yeah, by the way, yep, the new mug, it is now available. It's up on the website. Missed me, suckers. People are going to love this one. Yeah, it's available on the website, stonemont.us. And after I'm done with this, I'm going to make another video on the Patreon channel in response to someone who asked me about how to start homesteading when they're a little bit older. I think that's a great question. There are reasons that I put things on Patreon that I don't put on YouTube. Not going to get into that. I've explained that before. It's just the way it is. Um, so anyway, let me get into this. There are a lot of people, and what brought this up? I've been thinking about doing this one for a while because it's necessary. Uh, but I was watching a video of a channel that I really like. Um, it's been within the last week, and they said something that was just so totally wrong. They stepped out of their lane, and that's the problem, and started talking about things that they obviously didn't know enough about to talk about. I won't say that they don't know anything. That would be a kind of a slam, but they didn't know enough about this to talk about it. And the problem is only those of us who actually do know about it recognize that. Everybody else probably thinks they know what they're talking about. Okay, that's the danger. Now that's one of two groups, and I'm going to be talking about both groups. One problem is of people actually, they want to share information. They come from a good place. They're trying to help people, and then they start talking about things that they don't actually know. Maybe they've heard it before from a whole bunch of people, never checked it, didn't have the experience to know whether it was right or not, and then just kind of pass it on. Excuse me, just a second. And those people are well-meaning. They're actually trying to help people, and they just kind of got outside the lines a little bit. Still, that's dangerous because it will put out information there that people will believe, and that can cost them in the long run. The other group, and sadly, there's a large group of this, are the ones who are just kind of scam artists, just kind of con men. They see that there's a lot of money in preparedness, and they're out there and they put on a good show. They play a good game. They talk all the talk and sound like they know what they're talking about, and and they don't. They don't. Um, they know all the words, but uh, I'll just see it there. So I'm going to tell you a couple of stories. The first one is when I was in DEA school. Now I wasn't with the DEA. I was with a local agency, and the local agency was putting together a regional drug squad. It was back in the late 70s. And it was right when Coke was coming big up from Colombia. The Cubans were involved, and I won't get into that. Those of you on Patreon have heard about that, and I don't talk too much about my personal history on YouTube. But I was assigned to a regional drug squad in the Kansas City area, and they sent us off to DEA school. Now, DEA ran a lot of these schools for, it wasn't like the guys who were going to be in the DEA, it was for guys who were already law enforcement, experienced cops, and who were going to be working undercover narcotics. And DEA had just recently been developed. It had changed from the old BNDD, the Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs, to DEA, Drug Enforcement Agency or Administration, whatever it is. And a lot of us thought that was a stupid sounding name, and we didn't like it anyway. I had one of the old BNDD T-shirts, and I had always meant to make a drug buy wearing that shirt. I thought that would have been funny. Never got around to that. But anyway, so I went off to this DEA school, and it was somewhere secret, and it was not a bad time. It was just a couple of weeks where we learned about the federal aspects of things, and sharing with us the information that they had developed from their South American counterparts of what was happening with the influx of cocaine into America. And that followed. And the reason that that was coming in is because when we left Vietnam, it dried up the supply, and you know who was bringing that in, of China white heroin. That created a vacuum that was then filled by a really low grade heroin out of Mexican brown heroin. Horrible. So there was a great market for some kind of great drug in the United States, because there's so many losers in the United States that just want to be drugged up all the time, right? And income South America cocaine, that was the answer. So anyway, so we were learning all about that stuff, and it was a cool a couple of weeks. I forget how long it was. That's I keep that. See that right there? That's my certificate from the DEA, right there. I keep that up there. I keep up several things to remind me of my past, and because it seems like another life, it seems like a long time ago, and it just kind of keeps me in tune. That one right there that you can't see very well is my police academy graduation class picture. Right up there is my DEA thing, and above that, what you can't see is a picture of me when I was a young copper, about 22, 23 maybe, making the largest drug bust up to that time in the county. How cool! I thought I was cool, and they took a picture of me, put it in the pay anyway. So I just keep those things up there. I don't have my cut yet framed. That's the old the cutoff jean jacket with the patches on it that I wore when I worked undercover motorcycle clubs. I'm going to get that up here one of these days, whatever. And then on the other side are some other stuff. So anyway, we go off to DEA school. It wasn't bad. We sat in class for through the day, and all of us were experienced cops, and listened to the guys. And most of the instructors were seasoned, experienced drug agents, undercovers, and they just kind of took us through a lot of stuff. And then at the end of the day, we'd go back and get ready to go out that night. We'd go out to eat with the guys from the DA who were instructors, and we'd go out and hit the clubs and the strip joints and things. It was cool. We got along very well with the DEA guys, because we were all experienced people. Well, one day we were going to have a class on compliance, and what that was, it was how to investigate doctors uh, overprescribing diet pills and stuff to housewives. It was the weird stuff. The working pharmacies and doctors, none of us wanted to do that. We were all off the streets. We wanted to get out there and get in the action. We didn't care about some doctor and a soccer mom who wanted to lose weight and such. So none of us wanted to go, but we had to. So there we were, this big room, and in walks this guy. Now you got to realize most of us were looking pretty scruffy. Where our hair was long, our mustaches or our beards were long. We were wearing street clothes. Of course we all carried guns, but no, you didn't show your gun. I mean, that's impolite, and only an idiot shows his gun. Only somebody who's trying to show how cool he is, how tough he is, does that. Um, but there was, and I've said this. I said there's enough guns in that room, to probably take over Colombia, but nobody showed them. Well, so we're sitting there gonna learn about doctors giving diet pills to soccer moms, and in walks this guy. And this guy looks so shiny. He's got a buzz cut. First off, he's overweight, got a pot belly on him, wearing a bright a white shirt with bright purple all over it, and a buzz cut, and a big shiny Colt autoloader on his belt, right out there for everybody to see. And immediately we're going, people who show their guns when they don't have to, that's a number one uh, red flag, folks. People who like to show their guns when they don't have to. Unless they're explaining something about that gun or they're shooting it, they don't have to show it. Okay, keep that in mind. Um, so we, we're looking at this guy. Who the heck is this guy? And he comes in and he starts it, talking about how important this particular class is and all that. And then he starts, within about 10 minutes, he starts telling war stories. War stories, right? Which is, it's just a catch-all term. It doesn't mean actually from a war. It means what you've done. Um, cool thing. And most of us who've actually done it, we don't tell the serious stories to people who weren't in it. We'll tell the funny ones, this is a funny one. We might talk about some of the things very briefly to other people, you know, but there's just no reason for it. You did it. There's no reason to talk about it. Uh, so he starts telling all these stories, and we're thinking it doesn't take 2 minutes for us to say this guy is full of you know what. And so we're just sitting there listening to this moron. And boy, he is talking. He's using all the words. He is. Anybody who didn't know would have thought this guy was the expert on drugs in the world. We knew better because we actually knew what we were doing. And he just went on and on and on and on. He's the kind of guy that if he made a YouTube video, everybody who didn't know any better would think, "Oh man, this guy is the guy." And then I'd be getting comments, "Hey, have you check out this guy? He really knows." I get that all the time. And he probably went around to uh, Boy Scout troops and mothers groups and the Rotary Club and stuff like that, and they'd be all excited. They're going to have a DEA expert talking about drugs and all that. And he'd come in, he'd put on his show, and everybody would think he was wonderful, and they'd be full of crap, and off he'd go out to the next to mislead the next group. So anyway, we said, who is this guy? And we asked the DEA guys, well, what the heck is this? It's what kind of moron is this guy? Well, they were kind of hesitant to answer at first, but finally well, we did some checking, we did some pushing, and we found out that this guy, it was back when Carter had reorganized some of the uh, some of the federal agencies, and he had done away with a bunch of spots in the Department of Agriculture. And this guy had been with the Department of Agriculture, and because of his, was it GS level rank, whatever, they had to find him a spot in another agency, of equal. Excuse me, I got to take a cough drop. Of equal level, right? So they found him. They were building up DEA at the time. It was growing. Says, okay, we'll put him in DEA. Now he's obviously a moron. He can't do anything. We'll put him in teaching compliance. And so we pushed and we pushed and we found out, well, what did this guy do in the Department of Agriculture? Was he an investigator or anything like this? No, turned out he was a pickle inspector. So yeah, we got a pickle inspector out there teaching everybody about stuff in the DEA, and you have to be careful about the pickle inspectors. They know all the words. They come out very forcefully. They sound very professional because of the words they picked up. And be careful. They'll sell you a pickle. Many years later, I published a martial arts magazine, and I tell you, I could tell a story about the martial arts. A lot of phonies in the martial arts. A lot of phonies. And people have asked me, are the martial arts good to learn? For self-defense and an SHTF. I will say 99% no. There are some, and I'll do that somewhere else. Maybe I'll do that on one of these days on Patreon. Anyway, so I was publishing a martial arts magazine, Grandmaster, and all that. Well, I won't get into that. I'm driving down the street, and I look up at this sign. This is in Olathe, Kansas, and it's a big new sign, says Shinhwa Tido. Well, what's that? I didn't know if it was a restaurant or whatever, so I pulled into the lot and went over and looked at it. There's a bunch of people, a bunch of Aikido people in there doing their Aikido stuff, right? Let's see how much time I have just to make sure that I can give this story its due. Yeah, I think I can. So I went and I watched the class, and of course they're doing their Aikido stuff, and I wait over to the side, and finally the guy that was obviously the instructor, he comes over and says hi. I says hello. I told him who I was, and I said I just noticed you here, and of course I was figured, well, I'll sell him an ad, right? Maybe sell him some advertising and maybe do a little story on him or something like that. So he says, well, would you mind coming back? I'm in the middle of a class. I says, yeah, yeah. So I came back another time. So anyway, we got to talking. His hero was Steven Seagal, who many of us called Stephanie Seagal. I'll tell you a story about him sometime. Do I have a picture? Hang on a moment. No, I guess I don't have it up there. I got a picture that Bob Wall sent me. It was the cover of Black Belt magazine where a bunch of the real fighters called Seagal out, and he never stood up for it. Anyway, uh, so I got to talking, and this guy's hero was Steven Seagal, and he was telling me. So I said, well, maybe I'll do a little article on you. People like to know different things. Oh yeah, he was all about that, and he started explaining to me how wonderful Shinwa Taido was. I'd never heard of it. I guess it's just kind of a special part of Aikido, and how much they had trained. They trained the police, and they trained everybody in this. And he talked a really good game, and he uh, he explained to me, how a lot of police departments were having them come and train them how to get people out of cars and how to subdue them without hurting them and things like that. And I go, well, that's interesting. I was a police officer. You want to show me some of that stuff? And he said, well, I'll tell you. So he was going to explain something to me because I said, well, I've taken a lot of people out of cars, and usually they get hurt. I've never known how. I've never cared really about them not getting hurt because it gets to the point where I've got to pull them out of a car. They're coming out of the car, and they had a choice to come out of the car without getting hurt. They they neglected to take that choice, and so here we are. So anyway, he's saying, well, he believed a lot in the pressure points and things like this. I said, oh, okay. So he says, well, let me demonstrate. He says because there's no reason to hurt somebody. If you were going to punch me, and there's no reason for me to have to punch you back or anything like that. He says instead, I would just access um, your nervous system, okay, and shut you down, paralyze you. I go, wow. I've been in this for a long time. I knew this was BS, total BS. But he had a whole class of people that really believed him, right? And probably some people on YouTube believe that stuff. Don't. Uh, so I said, well, would you like to demonstrate on me? He said, well, yeah, sure. So he says, go ahead and throw a punch at me. So I threw one. His whole class is standing around watching. I didn't want to embarrass him in front of his class. I wanted to give him a chance to show me what he wanted to show me. So I didn't throw a real punch. I threw one of these punches, it's like you're picking something up off the ground behind you and coming around big old roundhouse. It's the first thing you teach people how to defend against because it's easy to defend against. It's coming takes all day to get there and it's coming around to the side. Anyway, so I throw one. I just kind of, basically hang my hand out there for him to do whatever he's going to do. Well, he takes me in some kind of grip of the ankle. Then he's got his thumb up here in the inside of my elbow, and he starts pushing on it real hard. He says, he's obviously expecting me to become paralyzed or something. He says, well, "Do you feel that?" And I said, "Yeah, I feel you pushing on my arm." He says, "Hmm." And what he was trying to access the median nerve. He says, "Well," he says, "you." Then he really gets down into it. Rah! He didn't make that noise, but he gets down there, and there you can tell him. and he's kind of wondering how come this magic isn't working. Uh, do you feel that? And I said, well, yeah. I mean, you're pushing harder on my arm. I feel it. He said, boy, you have an unusually deep median nerve. I don't think he called it. I don't think he knew what it was, but it. He says you have a very deep one. BS. Not everybody's put together. If you know anything about anatomy, physiology, not everybody is put together exactly the same, but we're all basically the same. And if you're going to be if you're going to be relying on pressure points, you better have one that works on everybody, right? Well, anyway, he was grunting and groaning and trying to get in there, and nothing was happening. He said, "Well, he says you're just unusual. I'm not unusual. I'm like everybody else. It just doesn't work." So he says, "Well, show me what you would do," because I had mentioned to him that I had my own system. We were a little more brutal than that, but we were effective. He said, "Well, for instance, show me what you would do against if I, threw a punch at you." I said, "No, we don't have to do that." No, 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 no. He insisted. All these students were standing around. He said, "No, no, no. You show me what you would do." I said, "Well, okay." So he threw one of these punches. Well, I came across it, and there's all sorts of things you can do. But the best thing to do is just get out of the way. Step out of the way. There's a magic place to step that almost you will avoid almost any punch or kick. I'm not going to tell you what that is right now. So anyway, so so I decided, well, I'm going to come in what we call a hammer block and come in, and I do. He starts to throw that. I step into him and I throw it like that to hit his arm. And the next thing you do is you slip it off and you come in and you hit him in the head or the jaw or the temple, wherever you want to. Well, man, I come across and I hit him, and you would have thought I'd broken his arm. Maybe I did. No, I didn't break his arm. You would have thought I had stomped his head. He let out a holler and whoa, 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 whoa! What did you do? And I said, well, it's called a hammer block. I just blocked your punch, and the whole thing is you just meet force with greater force. Okay, it's like the way that a baseball hitter hits the ball. You hit it at a higher speed than it's coming in, and it's going to go back up. It absorbs all the energy, and the bat doesn't get hurt. The ball does. So I said, well, nothing. It was a hammer block, and I just came and blocked it. No, no, no. What did you do? And what he was getting at is because some of these people, they're all wrapped up in this metaphysical idea of chi or ki, the internal energy. Now, there is something to the mental direction of energy. I'm not going to get into that here. That's not what this video is about. But he was just sure that there was something magical about what I had done. It wasn't anything. I said, look, I just hit your arm harder than you were coming in. That's all there is. You see, he was a guy that uh, he meant well. He thought that because he had gotten his black belt, he'd studied for years, and of course in Aikido they don't really fight, to be honest, and and so they thought that everything they did would really work in a real world situation. So he meant well. He thought he was passing on good information. There's a lot of people in the preparedness world who think they're passing on good information only because they don't have the background or the experience to really have tested it. Okay, they don't know whether it would really work or not, but they've heard it, they're interested in preparedness, there's a market for it, and so they pass it on, and people believe it. I'm not going to identify who these people are. That's not my purpose. My purpose is to have you, to help you say, okay, let me check this against about what would really work. Does it make sense? Let me go try it. Okay. There's a reason that I wrote my books, because I saw so much out there in the world that was just horrible, to be honest, just horrible information, horrible ideas, ideas that were just brought out of thin air that obviously the person thought was a great idea, but didn't have the experience to know, whether it would work and that it wouldn't, or it would be minimal, whatever. But those are the people that they mean well, and they do. And I hear this every now and then about EMP. Now that's what my books were written about. Every now and then, it will come out, EMP, CME, stuff like this, and a lot of people will start talking about it without the understanding of it. Now, I don't understand the science of it, but I understand the effects of it and what to do about it. If you want we have some people on the Patreon side, on the Patreon channel. If you want to join us, the link's down below. Hondo Bob is one. He has explained the science of EMP. I mean, beyond what I can understand. But these people don't even really have the experience to think what would really happen and what you need to do in preparation for it. Those are good people that just need to stay in their lane or learn more before they talk. The ones that I really have a problem with are the ones who think they're experts just because they want to be experts, and they kind of piggyback off of other people. They build themselves up higher than they should be. Uh, and not only do they build themselves, the old legend in their own mind, but they are so persuasive. They are so uh, definitive and speak with such authority that many other people believe them and follow right along. That's dangerous. So look at my advice is, sift this through the strainer of your own common sense, what you hear. Don't be misled by people who talk a good game. I can tell, and other people with experience can tell, whether somebody has actually done what they're talking about. Most people can't, because it takes experience to know that. If you are for instance, if you are, I don't know, let's just pick anything. If you are a neurosurgeon, okay, and I start talking about neurosurgery, you're going to be able to tell within 10 seconds whether I know what the heck I'm talking about, and I don't. I wouldn't if I was talking about neurosurgery. If I was talking about many things, there's many things in the world I don't have a clue about, right? I try not to talk about them, or if I talk about them, I'm asking questions. I'm not trying to tell other people about them. So anyway, my whole point here is that preparedness is a serious business, because it's a life and death. I say that preparedness is about responsibility. It is the ultimate responsibility and the ultimate irresponsibility. And as such, it has to be studied seriously. You have to really put your thinking cap on and strain the information through through some common sense. Get your own experience so that you're able to identify these really con men, and then be careful. That's the reason that I wrote my book, because it's coming. I saw another one today on another channel, and it's not really a fear channel, but they said, it's coming, and I think it is. I mean, there's always something coming, right? But we're in a season now with this election that anything could happen, and a grid down is a definite possibility. And if you're interested in that, may I suggest, these are my books: the Stonemont series, the Reversion, the Revival, the Renewal, and Appeal to Heaven, the Blessings of Freedom, Hostages to Fortune, and the latest one that is exploding. I'll say something more about this in a minute. The On Wings Like Eagles. You can get them through Amazon if you'd like. They get them to you quickly, or you can get them directly from me, in which case I get to sign them for you and write a little note in there to you and all that. And we do have a one-click option. You can buy the entire set for a nice discount, and we also throw in the Stonemont notebook. Now, if you read this, and people who have read it will tell you also, you are going to learn so much real stuff in this, real stuff, and along with a good story. It's a great story. You're going to love the characters. You're going to love the storyline. You're going to love the things. You're going to learn stuff without realizing that you're learning it. And but this is real stuff from experience. Okay, and I wrote this because I had read a couple of books, a couple of very famous ones that I read them, and I said, no, That's not how it would happen at all. So I wrote how it would happen. So you want to be ready for that, the Stonemont series. And the best way to get them, like I say, is through me directly through our website, stonemont.us. The links for both of those, Amazon and the website, are down below. Order them now. Order them while they're hot. Order a set for your friends. We have somebody who has ordered like 13 sets and sent them off to friends. Boy, what a friend that is, too. And that's where you can also find the mugs. We have our whole selection. Say it with a mug. And people are loving this one. But anyway, think about it. Use your head. Don't just swallow whole whatever you hear somebody on a YouTube channel or a website or whatever they say. You know, do they have the background to actually be talking about it or not? And like what they say about opinions. I won't say that crudity on here, but but the difference between opinions is that whether they're based on experience and fact, or whether they're just based on some kind of fantasy and wanting to pass something on, right? Okay. All right. Hey, you all have a good day. Remember that we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. So prepare and prepare well, because you're only going to live as well tomorrow as you prepare to. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.